Hi guys, it's Jan from Melbourne Foodforest. Today I'll be talking to you about my favourite type of perennial onion to grow, and that's Egyptian walking onions. Today I want to talk to you about an onion that is so easy to grow. You'll have onions coming out of your ears, and these are Egyptian walking onions. So you know how with normal onions you plant one seed or plant and you get one onion? Well, with these you plant one bulb and you can get many bulbs, a lifetime supply of onions. Today I'll be sharing with you all my tips and tricks on what they are, how to grow them, how to harvest and how to use them. You'll hear Egyptian walking onions also referred to as tree onions or top-set onions. Their scientific name is Allium prolifium, which is quite apt because they're such prolific producers. They're perennials and you plant once and you get many bulbs. First up, let's talk about the name. I mean, how strange is the name Egyptian walking onions? Well, it comes from the fact that when these onions go to flower and they produce a green thick spike, the flower, or the so-called flower, is actually baby onions, and they first emerge from a white papery sac in the stem of the plant, and then they burst out with lots of mini onions. So it looks quite weird, like an alien creature bursting out in your garden. And that's why they're also called treetop onions, is that they look like a tree with lots of onions, smaller onions on the top. Now the term walking comes from the fact that once this flower head of baby onions gets so heavy, it topples over and lands on the soil. Wherever it lands, the little onions will shoot and will become mature onions like this over the next season. And then they will also form flower spikes, topple over and walk to a different spot in your garden bed. So this cycle keeps repeating. And so you plant in one corner of a bed and you'll have onions across the whole bed, which is actually pretty cool. And so hence they walk across your garden bed. See here? A couple of walking onions that are trying to do their thing and walk. There's one here. And I just saw one that's toppled over here. They get so top heavy and the top just snaps off. Oh, it just broke just then. But I don't want them to go everywhere at the moment. Oh, and I see another dropped baby bulb in here. So I want to keep the bed slightly neater. I'm going to break them off and start sprouting them separately. This one I definitely don't want to be growing here because this is outside our bed. So we don't want it to walk this way. We want it to walk another way. So I'm going to pull this one out. Time to take it out. And store it away. Next, let's talk about how to grow them. These are one of the easiest onions to grow. They will grow in all but the hottest of climates. Onions are a cool weather crop, so they're a great one to have in your winter veggie garden. For us in the southern hemisphere, we sow them in autumn. So grab one of these bulbs, pointy side up, and it might already have green shoots by that time, or it might not. These are the big onions that we harvested last season. And you can see that they're telling me, plant me, it's time. So I've got saved a basket of them for planting and another basket for eating. You've got to save some big ones for planting because you want to, the motto is to save the best and eat the rest. So make sure you save some of the really big and good ones. And you can see how big that shoot's already gotten. Just sitting inside. So these are telling me they're ready for planting, and you can see here that even though they look like they're all bound together and it's a single onion, there's actually 3 distinct onions in here, and it's very clear once they all start shooting you'll get 3 separate shoots. So because these are a good size, I will break these up and plant them all individually as separate plants. Yeah, so not all of them have started shooting, but you can see they're getting green inside, which suggests they're coming back to life and ready to be planted again and to have another crop. So that's very exciting. I plant them around 20 to 30 centimeters apart. For the best onions, plant into a soil enriched with compost, worm castings and some gentle manure like cow manure. Like with all root veg, don't over-fertilise with rich manures like chicken manure, or you'll end up promoting lots of green leafy growth and there won't be any big fat bulbs underneath. You may need to loosen your soil first with a fork if the ground is hard, because they like a rich, friable soil for their bulbs to expand. Given they're growing in winter when the sun is low in the sky and the light is scarce, plant them in your sunniest bed. This ensures that you're going to get the most bulbs at the end of the season. In terms of watering, we don't need to water it at all because over winter is when we have our wet season. So I just let Mother Nature do its thing. But if you live in a drier climate, if the top inch of soil is dry, you might want to add some water and irrigate them. Now let me show you how they grow. So these are multiplier onions, and you can see here I planted 1 bulb which is split into 3. We've had some that have split into 6. 6 is about the max I've seen. So unlike your traditional onions where you plant 1 seed, 1 plant, get 1 onion, this you plant 1 bulb and you can end up with 6. Pretty cool. And you can see here this one's split into 2 huge ones. They look kind of like French shallots with that long elongated shape. The brown skin, so they're like, yeah, brown shallots. Some of them do have more of a reddy tinge to their skin, and there's slight variations depending on what variety you have. Now let me show you this. This is really interesting. So this is a dried version of the green shoot that comes up, and at the end of the shoot, this just broke off, are these little mini onions, which is super odd looking and cool. So they're also called bulbils, and each of these is a mini onion. You can eat it like this, pickle it, throw it into your stews and soups and casseroles as they are, or you can plant them. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to create new walking onions out of these. Now after you plant, they'll produce a long blue-green shoot which looks very much like spring onion and in fact tastes a lot like spring onion. And the best bit is you can harvest these greens all winter and enjoy the yummy spring onion tops. And in fact, I find these much easier to grow than spring onions. Spring onions can take ages to get established from seed and become thick enough to harvest. These produce nice fat shoots pretty much straight away. Just be careful not to harvest too many shoots off a single plant, because then you're going to weaken its ability to grow bulbs. So just harvest a couple of leaves from each, let it rest, and then come back to it. If you don't want your onions to walk across your bed because you want to keep things under control and neat, so cut off the flower spike as soon as you see it appearing, and that's that hard center bit. It's also said that by cutting that off you'll get bigger and more bulbs underneath, so you know, could be worth doing. But if you do want baby onions either to eat or to replant and gift to friends, then what you do is once the center stem turns yellow, cut it off. So just before it starts to tip over. Or if you've seen broken, tipped over baby onions on your ground, then just cut them off and bring them inside and don't let them grow in the soil. Now, in terms of harvesting the bulbs, for us in the Southern Hemisphere, they're usually ready in mid-spring to early summer, and you'll actually see them poking out the top of the soil. Or you can brush the soil aside and check out the bulbs forming. At this point in time, you should cut down on watering because we want the bulbs to really harden up and cure, and they don't need so much water at this point, otherwise they could rot and not store as well. You can wait until the top's yellow before harvesting. This does create the biggest bulbs, but if you're short on bed space, you can pull them out once you can feel around the tops and they feel like they're a decent size. Now, if you're not planning on eating some of them, you can leave them in the soil and they will naturally reshoot for us at the end of summer into winter, and that's not a problem. They're not going to rot. But for us, we're always short on bed space over summer. So we pull them out, and that gives me a lot more space to grow all my tomatoes, capsicums and eggplants. And by pulling them out, the advantage of that is you're also thinning them, because if you leave them in the ground over time, they'll become really congested and you'll get smaller bulbs. So by pulling it out and replanting carefully each year and spacing them out, you're going to be maximizing the size of your bulbs. Now we're going to harvest some Egyptian walking onions. You know when they're ready for harvest, when they look really sad like this. The tops have turned yellow and they're quite droopy. This tells you that it's put all the energy from the stem into forming nice big bulbs. You don't want to pick earlier than that, so this usually takes place around early to mid-summer. Now let's feel around. You can see the bulbs already on the surface of the soil. And look, I think we're in for a good harvest. And you can see that they've multiplied, hence their name multiplier onions. They're one type of multiplier onions, and there are also others like shallots as well as potato onions. So we planted one bulb around this size, and look, that one bulb has split into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is pretty awesome. Not only that, but you get these little bulblets on the top, and these can be planted to form new onions again next year, or you can eat them as they are, as mini onions. Let's get pulling. Wow, massive bunch here. They're all, you gotta feel around everywhere. Look at this huge clump. You can see that multiplier effect really well here. 1 becomes 3. All right, let's keep feeling around. While you can leave a couple of bulbs in the ground and they'll reshoot in autumn to winter, I find that I prefer to remove them because this gives me more bed space. I'm going to squeeze a few more capsicums into here. More bed space, and it means you can store them away somewhere dry, so there's no risk of them rotting at all. But just look at that. In this tiny corner of a bed, we have harvested quite a good amount of onions. And they're a nice size this year too. That's quite a nice number. And there's lots of these mini bulbs of onion that can be replanted next year, which are very cute. And that's where the name walking onions come from. You can see how productive the onions are. In this tiny corner of our veggie bed, I think we grew about 30 to 40 onions, which is pretty impressive. And we've also got those little bulbs on the top to enjoy as well. So the multiplier onions, like Egyptian walking onions, are highly productive in small spaces. And I just love that they're perennials. They'll come back year after year. Let me show you two of these funny ones I noticed. So they have a big bulb at the bottom, and along their stem they've got a bulging baby bulb. And this one too, you can see that. They're all so unique and unusual and fascinating. And you can see some of the bulbs get quite big and fat, while others are smaller. As for these little bulbs at the top of your onions, you can see here, looks like a lollipop. It's pretty cool. There's ones of quite different sizes. There's ones that are really big and really teensy tiny ones. So the best thing to do with these is to replant them straight away, and you can do that into just a pot or a seedling punnet. And then they'll start growing because they'll take a season or two before they reach full size, depending on how big they are already. And you can also give them away to friends, or you can pickle them and eat them as is. So if you do plan on growing them, try and plant them as soon as possible, because that gives you the best germination rates. But I have also left them for 6 to 12 months and planted it and had awesome germination. Just don't let them dry out too much because they're so little, so keep them somewhere dark and indoors. And here are the little bulbils. These are the fat ones, the big chubby ones, and these are the smaller ones. So the chubby ones, the ones that are the size of mini onions, will get going in about one season. Whereas the teensy ones, the tiny ones, will take a couple of seasons before they get to full size. And when you plant these in the soil, plant them again pointy side up, because the shoot comes from the top. So you can see it's got like a rounded bottom and a pointy top. Same with these. It's pretty easy to tell because we've left some of the dry shoot on it, but round bottom side down, pointy side up. You can see here some bulbils that I planted about a month ago have sprouted, and they're so big already and tall. So these are ready to be planted out. This gives them a head start. If you plant it as soon as you harvest them, even over winter, you can put these into soil and let them start sprouting. And now that it's autumn, late autumn, I can plant these out. Whereas look at these ones that I didn't plant, they still haven't shooted yet. And really important tip when planting these is to try and get them the right way up. So this, I know my first year I planted them all upside down. So this side, where it's sort of more flat, this side is where the roots come out of. And up here is the shoot. So on this one, it's super obvious. On some of them, it's less obvious. Let me help try find one. I mean, I think they're starting to shoot now, so it does make it a lot easier. But accidentally one year, I planted them upside down. I thought this side was the roots, and that side was going to be the shoot. So it's actually a giveaway if they're still looking like this. Like a lollipop. Egyptian walking onion lollipop. This makes it really obvious because where they're joined together, that side is where the roots come out of, and this pointy side is where the shoots come out of. So you pop them into the soil this way up. We've got a few more trays of these coming up, and I've got to plant the rest of these too. Still a bunch more to go. But yeah, so this will form another generation of Egyptian walking onions, particularly if you want to quickly expand the number that you have. They will take a little while to get to size, a couple of seasons, but you know, look at this green spring onion like tops, and they'll gradually bulb up, and over a couple of years will start splitting off themselves and form new families of their own. Here's a couple more trays that I planted a few days ago, and you can see as soon as they touch the soil, damp soil, they start to grow roots out of the bottom. Pretty quick for them to get their roots, it only takes a few days, but the shoots take a little bit longer, at least a week, depending on your temperatures. And you can see the bulbs of all different sizes, even these tiny ones have started to shoot up as well. And so that's about a week's worth of growth, and these ones are coming up too. And you can see these ones I showed you before that we planted earlier are quite big already. Okay, finally, let's talk about the taste. Now, they taste a lot like your standard onions and shallots. Maybe our palates are not as refined, but to us they taste quite mild and nice. Pretty much the same. So use them in the same way that you would use your standard onions, in pasta sauces, stir fries, or if you like it raw, in sauces and salads. Quite versatile. You can also roast them and pickle them as well, so we really love them. So I hope that's given you some ideas on why you should incorporate Egyptian walking onions into your backyard. If you enjoy a good onion, these are so easy to grow and so giving. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, as this helps us make more content. We have heaps more interesting fruit and veg and cooking on the way, so please stay tuned.